Welcome back to Luxury Cruising. I am your host, Krystal Sodaitis, and I am so excited to have my friend, Michele Wirth, back with us. Michele, you may remember, she was my very first guest on episode 2. So we will link that in the show notes. Be sure to go back and listen to that episode. She was talking about celebrity and the retreat in that episode. But today, in another first, she is going to be talking about her Viking River Cruise. This is the first river cruise that we have had on the podcast. I talked about Viking during my luxury line episode. So we will link that into the podcast as well. So with that, Michele, please remind all the listeners about you.
Hi, everybody. So nice to be back, Krystal. My name is Michele Wirth. I own Simply Inspired Travel. I have been a travel advisor since 2013 and a travel agency owner that long as well. Um, we have a wonderful agency with 14 different agents that have different specialties. So, yeah, it's been busy.
That's amazing. 14. Wow. What growth. So tell us about your Viking River Cruise. Tell us the boat, what made you decide to do this itinerary, whatever went into the decision making.
Okay, great. Well, my husband and I have some really good friends that we have had dinner once a month together for years now. And we decided to see about a river cruise dinner. It's a like 5-star restaurant on the river here in Tampa called Craft. And we decided to see about that, and we asked them to join us, and I wasn't sure my friend would. She was a little nervous about anything having to do with the water. She said she gets seasick and just I really wasn't sure, but she agreed, and we went. We were having a wonderful time, and my husband mentioned, "Hey, this is what a river cruise is like." So she mentioned, "Oh gosh, I would be nice, the Danube, whatever." So she mentioned the Danube, and about a week later, I presented her a Danube cruise and said, "What do you think?" And she went for it, and it was that was the start of it. And then we decided to join them. We had no plans to do this, but we decided to join them. So I had done the Danube cruise on Alma 2 years ago, and I was sick for most of it. So I caught a terrible flu, at a conference that I was at prior to that, and so my husband got to enjoy it, but I was sick for most of it. So knowing they were doing the Danube, I was excited. I had picked out an amazing itinerary for them, so that's that's why we decided that one.
Awesome. So tell us, which Viking ship was it? And tell us about the ship.
Okay. We went on Viking Eagle. I don't know if you know much about the Viking cruise ships and how they name them, but they're all named after uh, Scandinavian warriors. So Eagle was a warrior poet. And apparently one of the most memorable Vikings to appear in the Old Norse sagas. Not something I'm familiar with, but that's something they tell you about. But the ship is beautiful, like all of the Viking river cruise ships. I don't know if you know, but they're all basically identical on the river. There's only 190 guests when it's full, 53 crew. It's 443 feet in length. And this particular one was built in 2016. But as I said, it doesn't matter when a Viking River ship is built because they keep them looking brand new always. They're always in great shape.
And so tell us, because they're known for having that sleek Scandinavian design. So tell us about sort of the aesthetics of the ship and the inside and Was there anything that stood out as particularly luxurious?
Um, Not necessarily luxurious. I think that sleek Scandinavian design they have makes it more minimalist, honestly, but it's not luxurious. Okay, let me try to explain. Some people refer to it as it looks IKEA-ish. It does not, to me, look IKEA-ish, but I understand,
Oh, IKEA is from Scandinavia,
it is.
Sweden, right? Norway?
Right, yeah. But it is from one of those areas.
I think we can write in
So
and tell us.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh, that's a good idea. So they do have light wood, they use a lot of light wood. My favorite part of the ship, the part of the ship that just felt the most luxurious to me was the aqua bit is what they call it, and it's at the front of the ship, and it's all glass, and you can dine in there. There's not a lot of tables, just a few, but you can dine in there for breakfasts early morning. It's a smaller breakfast, so if you're somebody that just likes a piece of fruit, maybe a Danish and a cup of coffee, that's perfect. There's also an outside area beyond it, and I believe that area can also be totally opened up to all be outside. We were there in March, so we weren't opening that area up to be all, but I can imagine maybe in another month you would.
Yeah. So many questions just about that. The first thing I just want to point out is just doing a little back of the napkin math. I mean, 191 guests with 40 some odd crew is less than 5 to 1. And that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, it's 53 crew.
Yeah. Even still, like,
Now, you're not seeing all the crew, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes making things work and you never even see them, right? But what's lovely about it is you really do get to know the crew you do see, the stateroom attendant, the captain, the see in my memory, I should have written this down. Because I forget what they call it now. You have the tour manager, which I believe there's another name for him though. I'm sorry. Um, but you get to know all of them. You get to know the servers in the dining room and the people at the front desk. I mean, you just really do get to know the people you're interacting with on a daily basis.
yeah.
Great.
And they get to know you, which means they can take care of you the way you like to be taken care of.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What was the temperature around in March?
So we had a couple of really cold days. Um, I want to say our coldest day, it was like maybe in the 40s and windy. So it
Yeah.
was kind of cold. And then we had lovely days. I mean, most of the time it was lovely. It was perfect weather, in my opinion, for touring and for walking around. Um, and this is a very personal thing that I encourage all of my clients, luxury or not, to consider is traveling in the off season when it might be, if the weather is cooler and you can prepare for it,
Yeah.
for most people, if you can prepare for it, you're going to enjoy it. But the benefits, fewer crowds, less cost, so everything costs less. So not just your initial tour is gonna cost a little bit less, but also then everything you're doing, no
Yeah.
lines. I mean, to me, it's a win, win, win. That's one way somebody could get a feel of luxury without having to pay for the VIP experience. Just
Yeah.
travel off season.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the and I know because I know so much about cruising right now, like there's a term called shoulder season, which is sort of the
Mhm.
seasons that surround the peak season. And I know that river cruises, a lot of them, especially down the Danube, will do the Christmas market cruises. So they're not
Mhm.
only cruising in cold weather in
Oh,
December,
yes.
and you went in March. So can you river cruise 12 months out of the year, or is there kind of a lull period?
after the Christmas cruises, they do take a break, and honestly, those March cruises are fairly new. They've only started running those earlier cruises for the last few years. The American Society of Travel Advisors held their first expo 3 years ago in Budapest, and they were bringing out all of these river cruise ships that would ordinarily be like on rest or,
Yeah.
getting their and they got them out there and cruised them afterwards. I mean, you're not going to put them out there and staff them and all that, not cruise them. It became not that they didn't have any doing that or running those times of year, but it wasn't nearly as popular. So now it's caught on a little bit and people actually like me, prefer it. It can get really, really hot in the summer. If you've never stood on cobblestone that has been heated by the sun for 6 hours, trust me, yeah.
Yeah, and this is still Europe. I mean, and especially, and we can get to sort of the itinerary in a minute, but the nice thing about river cruising is that in between some of these large cities, you're going through these smaller villages where they're not going to have the buildings air conditioned to 60 degrees. And in Europe, it's for basically they don't automatically put ice in drinks. And so
Sure.
it can be very, very hot and very, very crowded in the summer. So if you have the opportunity to sail in off-peak seasons, it can be very cost effective and just a more pleasant experience.
Yeah. And, aside from the sailing experience, the time you have on land during that time will also be just more pleasant, in my opinion, just for all those reasons. The crowds, the heat, the lines, the
Yes.
costs. Yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
Mhm.
Tell us about the room and if there was anything particularly luxurious about the room.
Okay. Well, so I did mention that we were kind of a last minute booking on this room. So we had a choice of like 2 cabins. One was the one that we call the duck view cabins. So we did not take that. The other one was a princess balcony cabin. So it was pretty small, but efficient. It worked. It was, tastefully decorated. Um, Again, it's minimalist but efficient. So I had everything I needed in there. We had a balcony door we could open. We did not have a balcony we could walk out of. I do enjoy sitting on a balcony, but I did enjoy this, so it was fine. Um, the room itself is set up very nicely. I mean, it's tasteful decor. Um, they do give you bottled water in, reusable glass bottles, large bottles of water in
Which I
each
love.
stateroom. Yes, I love that too. And they do give you, they tell you ahead of time, if you would like to bring your own reusable water bottle, that would be advisable. Otherwise, they give you glasses. Um, they do give water bottles, plastic water bottles, though, on the way out. So I'd like
When you're
when you're going for your excursions, yes. Yeah. It would be amazing if they could give out reusable water bottles and let people refill them on the way out, but I guess that's a bigger expense and they're not a
yeah.
bigger expense, cruise line. So, but it's beautiful. The bath products were very nice. I'm trying to remember what they were. I guess I should have taken better
The
to that, but
branded a branded bath product?
yes. And I will maybe remember at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, they weren't the L'Occitane. That's another cruise line that has those. But they are very nice.
Yeah.
I'll see
Yeah.
if I
I
can
think
bring.
um that is one of the mark when you start getting up into more luxurious lines is they have a relationship with a very specific company to provide their bath products. I think that's more and more becoming a separation point. I mean, some of the other cruise lines, they have something that's sort of specific to them, but it's not a known brand. Like you said, like the L'Aquitaine,
Right,
however you
right,
pronounce it.
right.
Um, and to be clear, the princess balcony is basically did you have a door and like a little grating that allowed you to have fresh air and stand there, but you'd have to like bring a seat over to be able to actually sit?
Correct. And the room is not that big. So really what you're doing is you're pulling the stool out from the desk and sitting there, and two people are not sitting side by side there. I mean, it's not meant for, but yes, you can open it all the way and you have like a bar like you would if you were on a balcony and you have the, so you just have that across. And yeah, you can enjoy the fresh air and see it. And you have a wall of, um, you have both sides of the glass, so you could still open it all and still see it, but only one side's opening and.
Yeah. Um, and give us a sense that I mean, you don't need to tell us exact square footage, but like compare it to like an interior on a ocean cruise ship. And
Okay.
was it large or about that size?
No, it's about that size. I do have square footage of all these. I wanna say the starting size is gonna be about the size of your smaller inside cabin on a cruise ship. Um, your next size up is going to be like a standard balcony cabin even on a cruise ship, just
Mhm.
configured a little bit differently.
Okay.
They do have some suites. The
Yeah.
suites are, they have a size between what I had in a suite allows for room for like an extra chair and an
Yeah.
extra little like table, right? And that size also has a balcony you could sit out on. So that's the category I would have chosen had it been available. It was available for my friend. I booked her into that, but it was not available when I decided to join her. So,
Another reason to book early, and but it's good that at least you were able to get
definitely.
your friend into the suite
Oh,
and
yeah.
have that first experience where you're able to sit out on a balcony and especially a river cruise where you can just like watch the world go by. Um, I love the idea.
And
I
let me
can't wait
tell
to do
you,
a
she
river cruise
loved
because
it.
yeah, I can't wait to sit there and just watch. Like, I love looking at the ocean. Like, I am somebody that can on the deck or on my balcony and look at the ocean and look at the waves for hours at a time. But I also think I would really like I know when we were in Alaska, I loved when we got to the part of the fjords, like I loved looking at
Mhm.
that land and just
Oh,
being able
yeah.
to. So I'm sure it'll be the same. And I've been to Europe. I mean, I know when I drive along and if we would drive along the river, it's nice to
Mhm.
see the different
Beautiful.
landscapes. So it's only magnified
Yeah.
when you're sitting on a cruise ship. Tell us about the food and were there any particularly luxurious aspects about the food?
The food was exceptional. It really was. It was so good. The service was exceptional. My friends that went with us, they compared it to an experience they had recently at a Michelin star restaurant. So if that tells you anything. And that was the entire cruise. That was the whole time. Everything was really just, and yes, I would say that is a luxury. That's probably their most luxurious feature. And I think that's one of the most important features, to be honest, is the food, the meals, how they're prepared, how they're presented, how they're served, the service. And all of that was exceptional. I
Yeah.
couldn't find something wrong with any of it.
That's fantastic. And again, because it's a smaller ship, fewer passengers, your servers are able to, we said this earlier, they get to know you. So if you
Yes.
tend to like your sauce on the side, after the second day, you don't have to say anything. Like, we'll bring you your sauce on the
Right. Now, where you may notice is, if you have a favorite high-end wine you enjoy, you may not they serve their wine. They have a red and a white, and that's what they serve at dinner. They do have a bar that's stocked that you can purchase a drink or whatnot. But the wines that they serve during the meals are theirs. They're very good, in my opinion, but people have discerning tastes, and that could be a feature that doesn't feel very luxury for somebody who's used to something and can't get it.
Yeah, so that's good to know that the options for wine are somewhat limited.
You wanna know something? The fact that you just said that, I'm thinking to myself, did I ever see a wine list? I'm not sure that I looked for one because, I mean, but I wanna say there had been a couple of wines, because but no, I don't think there was. I mean, I think they have a range of wines that they do serve, and they do serve different wines. So, like with each region, this was something I loved about it too. They would serve something from that region. They would serve a wine that's particular to that region. And it was, like I said, it was always really good. So, I just was game in on experiencing everything that they were serving. I did not even look further, but I do know that they serve the range of wines within the cruise. Also, I did miss the Chateaubriand night,
Oh, no.
and I did not know it was Chateaubriand night. I would have made more of an effort not to miss it, but I was enjoying my time. It was a night we were overnight in the port, and I was just really having a great time and meandering, and that's something that you can do when they're overnight in port like that. So
It's
on
easier to
me,
go to
but
Chateaubriand than to spend overnight in which fort were you in?
true, Passau, which was
Yeah.
also one of my favorite ports.
The one thing about Viking is that it's very inclusive, but it's not all inclusive. But one of
Correct.
the things, if I remember correctly, is at least one excursion per day is included in your cruise fare.
That's
So
correct.
tell us about your itinerary. Um, and please tell us what was amazing about Prasau and anything else that might have stood out about the itinerary.
Okay, great. So our itinerary started in Budapest, which I absolutely love. If you haven't been to Budapest, it's just a magical European city. I just love it so much. And I've walked a lot of the Buda side. Um, so it started in Budapest. We got there a day early, and we have a hotel that we love to stay at. It's not right on the river. It's in a little bit. It's called the Parisi Udvar, and it's just another magical location, in my opinion. It's you walk into that place, and it just to me it's like being in Paris, actually, even though we're in Budapest. But I love it. It's just beautiful. And then so we were there overnight, and then we transferred. We actually had a tour, a private tour that we did from there. We did it from the hotel, but then the next day we uh, embarked on the ship, and the ship is overnight in Budapest, which is wonderful. So that if you are somebody who does not want to fly in a night before, this is an
None of us
itinerary
ever
you can
recommend,
fly
but
in the day of, because it's not going anywhere. But when somebody tells me they don't want that overnight, this is the kind of um, itinerary I'll put them on. So it had 2 days in Budapest, the day you embark, overnight, and the next day, and it didn't leave until later the next day. So you had all day. Then we were in Bratislava, which is a nice. That's where they have a big Bratislava castle. So every port has a walking tour included. That's what's included. It's a local walking tour, and they're done very well. They're done by locals who are hired by Viking. They're not subcontractors. They're hired by Vikings, so they become Vikings employees, but they're locals. So they live in the areas that they're touring, and they're very, very good. I will say, just as an FYI, since we're talking about this, the quiet boxes they use so that you can hear, exceptional. They're so good. You as long as you can see the tour guide, you can hear the tour guide like we hear each
Yeah.
other right now. It's really good. So Bratislava was nice. I'm trying to remember their walking tour, if there was anything specific that was. I know that some people did a hike up to the castle.
Mhm.
I believe my husband and our friend also did that hike, just not on the tour. I don't know. I think they just,
Decided to go off on their own adventure.
yeah. So then we're in Vienna, and I love Vienna too. Vienna is just amazing. So Vienna was not a walking tour. So that was good because Vienna's bigger, it's spread out more, and it would be more difficult to see all of the major things. So what they do in Vienna is it's a motor coach tour, which that's the other thing. Viking owns their own motor coaches. So every single one we got into was beautiful. It's like it was brand new. There was always more than enough room for everybody and then some. And that's what they do. You're never going to be at capacity. So that was
Great.
excellent. So I don't know if you're familiar with Vienna, but they also offered a lot of optional tours so you can have a more enhanced tour. We didn't do that because we've spent 4 days in Vienna the last time we were here, and our friends extended their trip an extra 4 days at the very end, and they went back to Vienna. So we just did the original tour, and it was wonderful. And then in Krems, that was our next stop. That's where the Got Abbey is. So that was beautiful. And that was the tour that we did. In some ports you have time to do the morning tour and to choose another tour. In other ports, in other areas, you may choose a tour that takes the entire time. So you skip that walking tour.
I
We
feel like
also
it's
went,
common, right? In most of like you can
oh,
take
definitely.
longer excursion where you're basically your entire time in port is just on the excursion, and you can choose a shorter excursion so that you have some time to walk around on your own.
Definitely. And, I will say that in the past, I have been more likely to not choose a longer excursion because, I don't want to miss seeing the highlights of the city or whatever. And if there's not time for both. However, this time we let our friends choose and we said, you guys choose. We're just going to do whatever you want to do. And so we did 2 longer excursions, and they were awesome. They were
Nice.
really awesome. So one was, Seski Krumlov. We
Mm.
did that from Linz. It was an all-day, excursion, on their motor coach, and you go into Seski Krumlov. It was like a medieval fairy tale town. It was incredible. It was so beautiful.
Sounds
I
good.
get over
Yeah.
it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Um, then we were in Passau, and we were overnight there. So that's why I got lost and ended up not. But they have, much like Budapest, where you have, the one side, and then on the other side of the river, you have the castle. In Passau, it's the same thing. So we spent most of the day on the one side, and then we walked up to a great extent on that castle. And then we were able to catch a bus for the rest of it because it was a long, long
Yeah.
walk up. But it was beautiful once you're up there. Oh my goodness, so beautiful.
Did you do that both days? Just walking around and experiencing it?
Actually, the first day we actually did a different excursion. That one was also the longer excursion.
Was the
Day one,
excursion on the first day or the second day?
no, this was the one I'm thinking of now is, oh yes, the first day. So we did a walking tour.
So let me ask, so is that what you did on both days? You just walked around and explored and got lost? So is that what you did for both days in Prasad? You just walked around and got lost?
No, we walked around and got lost for one day. It was awesome, and we went and saw the castle, but the other day, it was a full day tour that took us through the countryside to a place called Kundokora, and there's a castle, there's, art, it's it's a beautiful area, there's a little winery, a little village, but the most unique thing there, and I wasn't able to get photographs of it because they don't allow you to photograph it, is a skull cathedral.
Wow.
It's very strange, yeah, it's, basically the entire cathedral, and this was done I did not understand, but basically it was done, um, as a homage to all those skulls, the people that are represented by the bones and the skulls. At one point when they were revitalizing that area, now you're talking thousands of years ago, and during that time, there's thousands of
Yeah.
skulls and bones and stuff, layers and layers. So when they were excavating to build something else, there were all these bones. So an artist had taken all of these bones and he had stored them and somehow got the permission to create this exhibit. And it's all for just supposed to be some kind of a memorial, but really it's just a tourist thing. And
Yeah.
it's very strange. It's gold, like they're made into art and displayed.
Wow.
Chandeliers and yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
That's
interesting. I had no idea we were going to see that. It was
well, I think what's
yeah.
coming to my mind is that this is one of the great things about river cruising is that people are gonna see Budapest. They're gonna go to Vienna. People press out itself, but who's really gonna take a lot of people aren't gonna take that as a day trip to go to some of these outlying small villages with these really interesting places to visit. So I absolutely love that. And I love that Viking offers it. Did you go anywhere else? Were there any other stops?
So when our cruise was over, we did an extension. It was a 4-day extension in Prague, and that
Yeah.
was incredible.
Yeah.
That was
Prague is
really
amazing.
incredible. I love Prague as much as I love Vienna and Budapest. Magical.
Yeah, I love those 3 cities too. I've spent a lot of time in Budapest. I have been to Prague a couple of times. I've been to Vienna a couple of times, and so they're all very different. They're very close together. And so yeah, I agree. Like that's a really nice roundup of uh, of cities. Anything else luxurious about the ship or the trip that we haven't covered?
Yeah, so I wanna just say one thing that I was very impressed with Viking, like, really exceptionally impressed with, is that there was a Viking representative everywhere. When you took your cruise, did your tours, you had a Viking person who was leading your tours. Sometimes you would even have one of the crew from the ship also kind of following along the tours. Every hotel for your pre-cruise, your post-cruise, there is a Viking staff, 1 or
Hmm,
2 people that are
sure.
there 24/7 and available, visible and available. They are on the buses doing the transfers back to the airport. They are friends. We did arrange their flight through Viking Air, and they were so impressed because the Viking representative was there to meet them. Everything was clear. They had no questions about where am I gonna go, whatever. So they really made it easy. So I was very impressed with that. And, that to me is a level of luxury, even if it isn't your own private chauffeur waiting with the sign, just being able to seamlessly come off and they're waiting and you don't have to guess at anything. that was great.
I think I agree with you, and it's a comfort, right? Especially for a lot of people in the US who aren't comfortable traveling to Europe. And Viking only does Europe. I mean, Viking not
Right, right.
on rivers all over the world. And so knowing that you have somebody there that's going to be able to speak your language is really, really comforting. So I have to
So
ask you, of course, I'm on the email list for Viking and I pour over them, just dreaming for my first Viking cruise. But I'm always
mhm.
getting the deals, right? Like, I mean, it's almost every day.
Tons
Just
and
like
tons, right? I
the
know.
brochures and the email, I kept it on my email because even the one I got today, enjoy reduced fares and voyages to Australia, China, and beyond. And I'm just wondering, this one in particular it leaves October 4th, 2025, which is probably around, we're recording this in April, end of April. And then from a
Mhm.
cruise perspective, pretty short. That's a pretty short window for reserving.
Uh-huh.
And I think you and me are on the same page that at least for US based contemporary lines, you get the best rate when you book early. And, I love to book things like the minute they drop to get those good prices. So am I better off still booking something on, let's say I want that Australian trip with my free
Mhm.
airfare and maybe a one stateroom grade upgrade, am I gonna get that if I book now for October, let's say 26th, or do I have to wait and
Oh,
hope that it fits my schedule?
okay. So, yeah, yeah, that was a lot. Okay. I will tell you that you can get lucky and wait and have an exceptional deal that will work for you. But more often than not, what happens is, and I've done this for years, I'll have a client look at something and then they hold out for whatever reason. And now they come back and want that same cruise months later. And they'll say to me, like you, oh my gosh, it happens all the time. Oh, 25% off, or it's all this now and I want to do it. And I go to figure it out and it's a lot more money. And they're like, what do you mean? How could that be? Because that 50% off or that 25% or whatever, it's off the higher price. It's not off the original price. So, what you were talking about, and the reason what you do is so smart, and the fact that you just mentioned Australia, I just had a client come back from a back to back Australia cruise on Celebrity Edge, and they booked it 2 years ago. It was right after it dropped, and it was on a Black Friday deal, but it was right after it dropped. So that was the best price for that cruise. There was, and I can give you an example, because I did know you were going to ask me this question. So I did a little bit of research, and just to give you a good example, because this is more often than not the way it really is. So in 2024, um, Regent released a new itinerary and they had 2-for-1 all-inclusive fares and perks, including business class air and shore excursions. The 10-night Mediterranean cruise in a veranda suite started at $10,899 per person for this particular veranda suite. That same 10-night Mediterranean cruise is now listing at $14,599 per person for a veranda suite. Now, that means there's still a veranda suite available. Probably not a lot of them, right? But they're still available. But look at how much it's gone up. I mean, $4,100 per
And so
person.
even if they were to offer a 25% discount, then it still would be more than what you would originally booked.
Yes, yes. The other thing is when you book early, so what happens a lot is I'll have clients come to me, like I said, they had a held off for whatever reason. We're looking, even if we do find a great price, Are they getting the cabin they want? A lot of times, I mean, I've had clients that were desperate to book and did not book because the only cabins available were definitely not what they wanted. So they didn't book. So they lost out on that. Whereas had they booked earlier. So that being said, during COVID, you could get amazing deals, right? Those cruises were getting to where they had to go out, but now they were only filled with, 10% of the people they needed. So, yeah, in that case, they were practically giving them away, and you could do that. So, the bad part about that is that's a sign of things not being so great in the cruise industry.
Yeah.
So, when things are good and things have been very good, you just can't rely on that. More often than not, it would be luck. So the perfect client for a last minute cruise, and I do have a few of it's somebody who is extremely flexible. They're
Mhm.
extremely flexible with their days. They're extremely flexible with the type of cabin they get. They're extremely flexible with where on the ship it is. They don't care. Those people could get a great deal because I could scan all the cruise lines, for a particular month and see who's offering the best last minute deal and the best whatever. And then they can, here you go. But
Yeah.
for anybody who's particular, you want a particular sailing, you want a particular cabin, you want to be in a particular location, it's best to get it earlier.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too you have to consider is that last minute, unless it's something like a luxury line that includes your airfare, you may get a great deal. I remember seeing some great deals last minute to Alaska, but then when we factored in the airfare, it was incredibly that negated any kind of savings from the cruise fare. So still best to book early and with a travel advisor.
Yes. And there are ways when you book early, you can, modify air a little bit. You can add a little extra deviation fee and then customize the air a little bit. When you book last minute on an air deal, you're getting what they give you most of the time. And they're not always ideal. A luxury cruise line also, they may be a little bit more conscientious about how they do it. They've also done wonky type of last minute error. I've seen it.
Yeah, like a
So,
weird connection or a really long layover or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's super good to know. Well, um, any cruise or otherwise planned?
for me, we have an Alaska cruise coming up. This one is not a luxury cruise. This is a group cruise that is going to be a lot of fun with a lot of great people. So we will enjoy that. One of my advisors, who happens to be a very good friend of ours, planned it for his wife, who's my best friend. So we're going to be doing that. That's going to be in June. I'm excited about that. And then in September, we have an AMA Waterways River Cruise up the Rhine with an extension in Lake Como. So that's going
Well,
to be
we have to have you
exciting.
back to talk about that. Absolutely.
I'd love to.
Well, thank you again so much. And just remind everyone how they can get in touch with you if they want to book their Viking River Cruise or any other travel.
Great. So if you're somebody who likes to send a quick text to get things started or phone call, you can do so at 813-230-1158. And if you are somebody who would prefer to email, you can email me directly at michelle@travelsimplyinspired.com. Or you can visit our website at travelsimplyinspired.com and go to our agents page, where you will see all of our fabulous agents who are actively currently booking and what their specialties are.
Yes, because one thing that Michelle didn't say when she talked about her agents, which I love about her agency, is that she in particular is a cruise specialist, but she has specialists about Europe and about American cruises. And I don't even remember what all of them are. So you're definitely no matter what kind of travel you want to book, you'll find someone that's going to be able to help you. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this episode. And until next time, I wish you safe and luxurious travel.
Thank you.